Imagine you wake up tomorrow and everything is gone. Your phone, your money, your status, your plans, even your name replaced by a number. No one asks what you want. No one cares what you believe. You don't get to negotiate. You don't get to explain yourself. You just suffer. Now here's the real question. If everything external is stripped away, what is left of you? Because Viktor Frankl claimed something radical. He said there is one thing that cannot be taken from a human being. Not by loss, not by humiliation, not even by cruelty. He called it the last human freedom. And he discovered it in the worst place imaginable, a Nazi concentration camp. Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist. In 1942, he was deported to the camps, including Auschwitz. He lost his family. He lost his work. He lost the manuscript he'd spent years writing. In the space of months, the life he had built collapsed into nothing. He became a prisoner, living in cold, hunger, fear, and uncertainty, day after day. Not as a thought experiment, as reality. And yet inside that reality, Frankl observed something that changed him forever. Some prisoners broke quickly, not just physically but mentally. They collapsed inward. They stopped caring. They stopped hoping. They stopped choosing. Others, under the same conditions, held on to something, a strange inner strength, a kind of quiet dignity. They weren't necessarily tougher. They weren't necessarily healthier, but they had something different. Frankl asked a brutal question. What separates those who survive from those who disappear while still alive? His answer became the center of his life's work. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose. And in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. Let that sink in. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. Most people don't notice that space. They live as if life is a chain. Event, reaction, repeat. Someone insults you, you lash out. You feel anxiety, you escape. You're disappointed, you collapse. But Frankl is saying there is a gap, a fraction of a second, a breath, a pause, a moment where you are not yet your impulse. And inside that moment, you are free. Even in the camp, Frankl couldn't control the guards. He couldn't control hunger. He couldn't control the cold. He couldn't control the daily humiliation. He couldn't control death. But he could still choose his inner stance. He could choose not to become what the camp was trying to turn him into. He could choose whether his suffering would degrade him or deepen him. This is the last human freedom. The freedom to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. Now let's bring this into your life. Because most of us will never face the extremes Frankl faced. But we face our own version of captivity every day. Captivity to emotions. Captivity to habits. Captivity to approval. Captivity to the need to be right. Captivity to the past. And the strange thing is, we often surrender our freedom without realizing it. We say, I had no choice. But most of the time what we mean is, I didn't like the choices available. Or, I reacted automatically. Or, my feelings decided for me. Frankl's message is not that you can control everything. It's the opposite. You can't. The world is unstable. People are unpredictable. Loss is inevitable. But your response is not predetermined. The event is not the final author of who you become. This is the first thing to understand. Lesson 1. You cannot always control your circumstances, but you can always control your stance. Your stance is the part of you that decides, the part that witnesses, the part that says, this is happening, and I will choose who I am inside it. Frankl also challenged a common modern belief, that human beings primarily seek happiness. He disagreed with the idea that the deepest drive is pleasure. He disagreed with the idea that the deepest drive is power. Frankl argued that the deepest human motivation is meaning, not feeling good, but living in a way that matters. He called it the will to meaning. This is why comfort alone doesn't satisfy people. This is why endless entertainment doesn't cure emptiness. This is why having more options doesn't automatically create direction. Because the human nervous system doesn't only want stimulation, it wants purpose. In the camps, Frankl noticed that prisoners who had something to live for often lasted longer. Not because they had less pain. They had the same cold, the same hunger, the same fear. but their suffering had a direction, a purpose, a why. A person who has a why can endure almost anyhow. That's not motivational fluff. That's psychological reality. When pain is meaningless, it becomes despair. When pain has meaning, it becomes sacrifice. When you know what you're suffering for, your mind stops interpreting the suffering as pointless. You can still hate it. You can still grieve. But you don't collapse into nihilism. This leads to a second insight. Lesson 2. Happiness is unstable, but meaning is durable. Happiness depends on conditions. Meaning can exist even when conditions are terrible. But here is where it becomes uncomfortable. Because Frankl's view also implies something else. Meaning is not something you passively receive. Meaning is something you respond to. Meaning demands responsibility. Frankl believed life is constantly asking you a question. Not, what do I want from life? But what does life want from me right now? And your answer is not a thought. It's an action. This shifts everything. It means you are not a victim waiting for life to become fair. You are a participant being asked to become someone. Even in suffering, there is a question. What will you do with this? What will you become because of this? What will you refuse to become? And this brings us to something deeper. Lesson 3. Meaning is found through responsibility, not through comfort. Frankl described 3 main ways people find meaning. First, through work. Creating something, building something, contributing. Not work as in employment, but work as in producing value in the world. A craft, a mission, a skill, a commitment. Something that forces you to become better. Second, through love. Through encountering another person deeply and genuinely. Not shallow validation, but real love. The kind that sees someone clearly and chooses them anyway. Love pulls you out of self-obsession. It makes you responsible for something beyond your mood. Third, through the attitude you take toward unavoidable suffering. This is the hardest path, but it's the one Frankl understood most personally. If you cannot remove the pain, you can still choose not to let it make you small. If you cannot change the event, you can still refuse to let it corrupt your character. And this third path matters because it prevents a dangerous illusion. The illusion that your life only has meaning when it feels good. Meaning is not limited to good days. Meaning is what you choose to embody on bad days. Now, Frankl also warned about something that is everywhere today, the existential vacuum. This is the emptiness people feel when life is comfortable but hollow, when they have entertainment but no direction, when they have options but no purpose, when they are busy but not aligned. It often looks like anxiety, like restlessness, like boredom, that chronic distraction, like scrolling late at night because silence feels threatening, like needing constant input because the inner world feels empty. The vacuum is not caused by suffering. It's caused by the absence of meaning. And the modern world is perfect at producing this vacuum because it offers pleasure without purpose, convenience without responsibility, and stimulation without depth. So the question becomes, how do you reclaim the last human freedom in your daily life? So how do you live this out? There are 3 ways to begin. Practice 1. Insert a pause. Your entire life can change if you learn to notice the space, the gap between stimulus and response, the moment where you could react automatically or respond deliberately. When you feel anger rise, pause. When you feel the urge to escape, pause. When you feel the impulse to prove yourself, pause. Give yourself 1 breath, 1 second. That's where you live as a conscious person. Practice 2. Choose a why that is bigger than your mood. Ask yourself, what are you responsible for right now? What is life asking from you today? What do you owe your future self? What do you owe someone you love? What do you owe your own potential? Meaning is not a feeling, it's a direction. Practice 3. Transform suffering into a task. This is not about forcing positivity. This is not about pretending pain is good. It's about refusing to let pain be pointless. If something hurts, ask, what does this demand from me? Patience, courage, discipline, boundaries, honesty, a deeper level of maturity? Pain will either shape you unconsciously, or you will shape it consciously. Frankl's deepest point is not that suffering is desirable, it's that suffering is unavoidable, and therefore it must be integrated, not denied. If you don't integrate suffering, it turns into bitterness. If you integrate it, it turns into wisdom. Now, let's return to where we started. If everything external is taken, what remains? Frankl's answer is not hope in the naive sense, not wishful thinking. His answer is the inner choice, the stance, the ability to decide who you become under pressure. Because no matter what happens, there is still a question being asked inside you. Will you become reactive or deliberate? Will you become cynical or responsible? Will you collapse into emptiness or commit to meaning? Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom. In that freedom lies your meaning. Think deeper. Live wiser.